Good morning and War Eagle War Report family. Your man Ike Jones here. Y'all know how we do. We're getting into it. Coach Christian Robinson looks like he might be out with Coach Hugh Freeze's new staff. Where do he and Coach Ron Roberts, the new defensive coordinator, go to complete their staff? Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Yes, indeed. The morning drop is here. Your man Ike Jones live and in effect. Welcome to all of the members of the War Report family. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. Before we get into today's topic, you guys know my man Mike G is normally here doing the morning drop with me. He's been absent pretty frequently from the War Report. He's been dealing with some health challenges, and as it were, he needs some help from the Auburn family. I pinned a comment here in the live chat section. I'll also put it in the description of the video for those of you who are rewatching it. If you guys want to be able to give to Mike G's medical bill situation, there is a link there for the GoFundMe. Medical bills can get super expensive for those of us who are out here dealing with stuff, man. And just prayers for Mike G. If you can donate, if you can't, at least share the link so other people who might be interested in doing that can donate. But definitely prayers up for him, and hopefully he'll be back here with the War Report family soon as he continues to fight through his situation. But we appreciate y'all. But let's get into today's conversation. We are talking about Coach Christian Robinson. Breaking news out of the Plains. He is not going to be coming back. This is something that I'd been talking about recently. We talked about it as recently as last night, that despite him still working fervently, as well as Zach Etheridge, there had been no formal offer for him to remain on the staff, and still has not yet been come out that Zach Etheridge is going to be retained. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where this goes with Coach Hugh Freeze and staff. The rumor is that, and he was previously offered, but the rumor is that it's going to be Josh Aldridge, who is currently the interim head coach at Liberty since Hugh Freeze stepped down and was the co-defensive coordinator / linebacker coach at Liberty, is going to be coming over and filling the role. So how do you guys feel about C-Rob not being there? One of the big things that I liked about Coach Christian Robinson was he was a great recruiter. He had a good eye for talent, and he was definitely a dog out on that recruiting trail. And that was one of the things that I actually mentioned that I liked about how this staff was composed, is that you had young recruiting energy paired with an older defensive coordinator who was more about the X's and O's. We lose that with Christian Robinson leaving, and we don't really retain, or we don't bring in a savvy recruiter with Josh Aldridge coming over. He seems to be a good X's and O's guys. He was actually, as I looked him up, and I'm not going to pretend I know a lot. This is really something I've been looking into very recently this morning as I saw the news coming out. He was last year, 2021, a nominee for the Broyles Award. So national folks thought that he was good as a position coach. So it's not that he's not a good coach. He seems to know his stuff. He just doesn't have the recruiting background that we had with Christian Robinson. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this staff. You guys don't know you're listening to the morning drop right here on the War Report. If you're trying to comment and can't, it's because you're not a member of the War Report. We need you to come on board to be a member. We do restrict the membership, the chat, to folks who have memberships. So you can come on board and be a member of the War Report today to get in on this conversation this morning. If you like to be able to do that during the live chat, if you are a member and you want to gift a membership to someone else, feel free to do that. You can do that right there from the live chat. But shouts out to our sponsor today, Rogue Shop. RogueShop.com is your place for all of your herbal supplement needs. A lot of great benefits to being with the Rogue Shop, and we appreciate them for continuing to be sponsors of the War Report. So if you aren't already shopping over there with the War Report, I mean, we've got benefits from everything to helping you with sleep, to focus, to there's a lot of things. People just think about, Delta 8 when they think about the gummies and all that, but it definitely has some health benefits as well. So head over to RogueShop.com and use code REPORT for 15% off of your purchase. Anyway, let's get back into this conversation, though. Um, Rogue Shop is helping me focus this morning on the conversation about the defensive staff. I thought we were rounding the corner here and finalizing the defensive staff. So let's just run down what we have as confirmed defensive staff now. Defensive coordinator, of course, is Ron Roberts. We've got Garrett, who's going to be the defensive line coach, and Wesley McGriff as your defensive backs coach. So that is 1, 2, 3 guys on staff confirmed. Typically, you're going to have 4 to 5 guys on your defensive staff. And so that means that there's at least one other spot for a strictly defensive staff person. Zach Etheridge potentially still going to be that guy. And I hope Zach Etheridge is retained on this staff because, again, I like the defensive staff that we have, having some good young energy in that room in regards to being recruiters. And Zach Etheridge is a dog on the recruiting trail. So, and Zach Etheridge has coached linebackers before, right? So Coach Ron Roberts, the defensive coordinator, is a linebacker guy. So maybe you have Zach Etheridge coach linebackers, and then you have Ron Roberts help out with the room, maybe coaching, kicking to the outside. Maybe you kick Zach Etheridge to the outside and let him coach your edge players since he is, coaching the back end. Do you continue to have Zach Etheridge coach on the back end? Again, we don't know the answer to that, but if we are bringing in the guy from Liberty, he is a linebacker coach as well. So that means maybe Zach Etheridge stays in that safeties role and you have Wesley McGriff coaching the DBs on the outside. So you split your back end in the way that we had talked about. Still don't know where we're going to go as far as special teams coaching. Who's going to be coaching the special teams unit? So there's a lot of unanswered questions this morning in regard to what we are going to be doing for the defensive staff with the news that Christian Robinson is no longer going to be on staff at Auburn. Again, no official word yet. I haven't gotten anything on the media break from Auburn University. No official word yet coming out from the school. But I do plan to see that come out here in the near term. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going on, man. I talked about this a little bit when Coach Ron Roberts was hired, or really just in the wake of not having coordinators. How much input were the coordinators going to have on their staff? And this coming after Ron Roberts was brought on seems to be. Does this, in your minds, watching here, does this indicate that Ron Roberts was like, no, we need to go in a different direction with our staff here, and we need to cut the fat and we need to bring somebody else? I don't know, whose decision this was, how much this was a Hugh Freeze decision, or a collaborative thing with Coach Ron Roberts to say, yeah, I've got a guy in mind who I want to bring. If it was Hugh Freeze, why wait until after you hire the DC to make this change? Why wait so close to your early signing day to make this pivot? And are there people who are in waiting in the wings in recruiting standpoint that were tied to Christian Robinson, and he was going after them? He's been out on the road really heavily. So where does that leave you with those guys who were out there, that he was out there recruiting for you as this pivot happens? I don't know the answer to any of those questions today, but I do think it's an interesting question to be asking this morning as we try to see what happens with this pivot in that direction. So I think that it's going to be interesting as well, since this is we talked last night on, if you were there with us on the midweek report, we talked last night about how big a recruiting weekend this is, with so many of the top targets either coming into town, or we're going to be doing some visits with them this weekend on the brink of early signing day coming next week. We've got to solidify this class in order to make the waves that we've wanted to with recruiting and all of the efforts that we've seen from Coach Hugh Freeze and his staff. But make no mistake that Christian Robinson was a part of that effort. Again, you saw him out there on the trail, and you heard, just recently he was named like top 30 under 35 or something like that. I thought something, he got recently recognized as one of the up and coming staff members out there, under the age of 35. So he was making waves in the community. I expect him to land on his feet We definitely appreciate the time that he's had thus far. But also, make no mistake, linebacker, as far as play on the field, was something that was lacking. And I don't know how much we can attribute that to Christian Robinson and his coaching. Was it just a matter of them not getting what was being asked of them, right? Because so Jeff Schmedding was a defensive player, excuse me, a linebacker coach as well. So, you know, I don't know what the answer was at linebacker. We do know that we need a big haul at linebacker, but it is interesting the timing of this sort of thing. But I do want to get into the comments. Before we go to the comments, once again, you are watching the morning drop solo this morning with your man Ike Jones, sponsored by the Rogue Shop. Head to rogueshop.com. Use code rapport when you want to go there for all of your herbal supplement needs. Again, this isn't just about herbal supplements. It's about health and healthy lifestyle and healthy alternatives. And speaking of which, when we talk about health, we can't do that without mentioning the health of our guy, Mike G. Pinned in the comments there in the live chat section is a link to the GoFundMe if you guys want to be able to donate to his hospital bills that are amounting here, as he's had to make multiple trips to the hospital over the last month or so. So definitely prayers for Mike G, and any help that you can have with donating or even sharing the link would be very helpful. We appreciate it. If you're not able to chat right now, it's because you're not a member of the War Report. We're asking all of our War Report family to come on board and be members and help us to continue to bring you guys daily content like this right here. Being able to get on here daily is a function of us being able to, not have to go to jobs in the day, right? So a portion of that is you all helping with membership. And we've got some film coming your way, so definitely looking forward to breaking down some film with you all. But let's get into the comments. I do want to hear from you all. It's not just about me having conversation or getting here and talking. I do want to hear what you all have to say. We'll start with the super chat here from Chalmers Wright, who says, in your heart, don't you feel if they would have fired Brian earlier and let Cadillac take over, well, like he did, we may have won more games? I don't know the answer to that. It's easy to say that in retrospect. But what I will say is that um, I am glad that the decision was made and we moved in the direction that we're in right now, because I love the momentum that we have going on. But winning more games last season, I don't know how much, that would have helped us in, pivoting in this direction right now. But, what's done is done. It's time that we're here and moving on to what's happening right now with Coach Hugh Freeze and his system. But, hopefully, I'm glad to see the momentum that we have as a program right now, but it is definitely possible that we would have won more games if it was all a matter. I think it's interesting. Like we talked about this a little bit off camera. Um, was it really just a product of the head coach, right? Because the recruiting momentum seems different. The team definitely played different. And really the only major change that was made was head coach. And so it does bring into question as to whether or not the head coach change was just all that was needed to move the program in a different direction. But there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas out there. What we do know is Hugh Freeze is here now, and C. Rob is no longer a part of the staff. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we pivot now. Haley jumps in. Appreciate you being here with us this morning, Haley. Losing Zach would be much worse than losing C. Rob. From a recruiting standpoint, I absolutely think that Zach Etheridge is a bigger known quantity out there on the recruiting trail. C. Rob is definitely a recruiting dog as well. So I don't want to pit those two against one another, but I do think that it's important that we retain one of the two, right? So Zach Etheridge, to me, it has been a bigger name in the Auburn circle for sure, and been doing it a little bit longer as far as his notoriety on the recruiting trail has been out there a little bit more than Coach Christian Robinson has to this point. So hopefully that he will be retained on the staff. Walt Taylor jumps in and says, looks like Josh Aldridge from Liberty will be the linebacker coach. We talked about this a little bit. Always good to see Walt here in the comments section. I look forward to getting more into, information on who he is as a person. Just from what I was able to pull up this morning, looking at the site from Liberty, just talking about him because he is the interim head coach right now at Liberty. So they put out more information about him. Again, Broyles nominee in 2021. Defensive players helped Liberty to win 3 straight bowl games between 2019 and 2020. And 2021, between 2019 and 2021. And Liberty was one of the only 5 FBS teams in the country who have won bowl games each of their last 3 seasons, joining Alabama. I don't know why that's attributed to him. But his defenses apparently were doing well and performing well. Just speaking of his linebacker play, they had taken a big jump up. And as Liberty was making that transition from FCS to FBS, he was a crucial part of that defense playing better. So we'll see how he does here at the Power 5 level. This is a big thing that people were worried about. I'm going to be honest. I'm not saying I'm worried about this, but I'm just reading the tea leaves of people online who are in the panic sector about, having a coach coming from the FBS or from a smaller conference bringing a lot of his staff over. So if we look at the staff that has now joined Coach Hugh Freeze, how many of those are Liberty guys as far as on the field? We're looking at the offensive line coach now. Actually, that was a guy from Ole Miss, so take that back. Excuse me, the tight end coach now would have been with him, the defensive line coach, and now our defensive linebackers coach, all Liberty guys. So 3 guys coming over from Liberty thus far. So, I expect there to be a lot of chatter in regard to that, but hopefully we'll see some good benefits from that. Let's see who else we have here in the chat. Da-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-dum. Walt Taylor asked a question talking to Corey here in the chat saying, do we have any linebackers from a recruiting perspective? And I don't actually know the answer to that. Who are the heavy linebacker targets specifically? And I do need to see and look and see who were the people that were being targeted by C-Rob and who he was a lead recruiter on. Jazzy Joe jumps in with a super chat here. Do you think it's huge that the Coastal Carolina quarterback is going to be on campus with Ra and Fairweather this weekend? We talked a little bit about this last night. And honestly, when I woke up today, that's what I was going to discuss. And maybe we'll talk about that on tomorrow's morning drop. I do intend to do a morning drop tomorrow, so it might be a good time to revisit this conversation in depth. But I do think it's big to have a couple of guys together who could be playing in the same offense together on campus and having an opportunity to talk with one another all at the same time. Considering Ra Thomas has already made one visit to Auburn, it's big that he's coming back and then making this visit down with the guy, Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, making his trip down here, considering he had proactively reached out to Coach Hugh Freeze. But again, maybe tomorrow we'll take another drop in and talk about that. So we'll see a little bit more as I get into that a little bit more tomorrow. Christian Crawford says, if we lose Zach, then I don't know how I could support this staff. The only Auburn guy we have is Coach Lack, and maybe crime given his history with us. Hey, listen, Christian, I understand where you're coming from. So Christian echoes some of the sentiments that I talked about of people wanting too many Liberty guys. He jumps back in and says, if we wanted all these Liberty coaches, we should have put Flames shirts on last year. Christian not happy with what's going on right now with the momentum and the direction of the staff. I mean, listen, as far as Auburn guys with C-Rob not being here, he's not really, I mean, he's, I guess, an Auburn guy, but he's not a former Auburn player, right? So we lose a previous Auburn coach, but we don't lose a former Auburn guy in that respect. He played at Georgia, right? So I definitely would have loved to see, maybe a guy. Listen, I've been a proponent of T. Will, but he would have had to take a step down or a co-DC spot in order for him to come in. I don't know how willing he was to do that and leave as a defensive coordinator from over where he is. But I mean, what Auburn guys were out there that you would have wanted to add to the Auburn staff? I think that would be a question that I would pose. Let's see. Kelsey Gardner says Zach and referring to Zach Etheridge last tweet seems to point to him staying on staff. Listen, I would hope so. But I don't, until it's confirmed, we don't have a way of knowing that. I want Auburn to go ahead and put out something official, right, that says he's on the staff. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. Let's see, what else do we have here? Corey Weber jumps in. It's natural for a new coach to bring in coaches with him he trusts. We would all do the same. This is something that I tweeted about when I was talking about a lot of the hires that had been made so far, and people were talking about the retread of old Ole Miss guys and current Liberty guys on the staff. listen, it makes sense, man. It makes absolute sense, specifically with. I think maybe a lot of the off the field staff is coming over from Liberty, but if you want to implement your culture and your way of doing things, you're going to want to bring in people who already know, and you don't have to convince them of this is the way that I like to do it or adopting a new thing. You just want to bring them in so you can start to get things going, right? You want to wake up in the morning and have some normalcy when you walk into the facility. It's already a new building. You're already going to be dealing with a new dynamic and new politics. Normalcy is going to help the transition speed along. So you want to bring familiar faces and people who know this is the way that I like doing things. This is, in the morning, this is what my routine typically is, and this is how I set up meetings. And a lot of that stuff, how I run practices, a lot of that thing, you want the staff to be familiar with that so that you can begin to do those things quickly and turn over the new staff in an appropriate way. So it's not unnatural for that to be an occurrence. Um, but again, that's not me having some glowing endorsement for this new linebacker coach. I don't know anything about him, right? Like, so I don't know really even how to feel about this other than I have to trust that Coach Hugh Freeze, who's bringing him in, and Coach Ron Roberts, who I'm assuming they've had a conversation about this, feel really good about where they are with him as a linebacker coach coming over to be a part of this staff. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Haley jumps back in. Not having a wide receiver coach name yet is concerning since they put Ike Hilliard out 2 minutes after walking the door. We talked about this last night a little bit on the midweek report, and I have to agree. I just think it seems odd, right? Like, so there's a couple of things in regard to this. You have to assume that they knew or they felt like they had a guy, right? Because they retained C-Rob and they retained Zach Etheridge without putting a tag on them as definitely being permanent. And we see now C-Rob is gone, right? But they got rid of Ike Hilliard immediately. And so you have to wonder what led to that decision, other than they thought they had a wide receiver guy lined up already and that fell through. Because otherwise, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to not keep him and help stabilize the wide receiver room unless you felt like for some reason he just was not going to be a good fit. And it didn't. I mean, I don't know if they had a conversation. I don't know what the deal was with the Ike Hilliard thing. But that is concerning for me as well because we don't have somebody. So I'm looking forward to seeing who is going to be that person and what's going to happen with the linebacker. Excuse me, what's going to happen with the wide receiver room moving forward. Let's see what we've got here. More comments. We'll grab a couple of more before we get out of here. Boom, 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 boom. Bay Lyman says the wide receiver coach may be coaching a bowl game. Listen, I would have been all in favor of this thinking had we not just named an interim head coach as our current linebacker coach, right? I don't see any reason unless that that wide receiver coach has asked for them to not put it out until after they finished their bowl game to try to and I don't see a reason why you would go ahead and name. It hasn't been officially named, right? So maybe we are jumping the gun on it being Josh Aldridge, but he's the interim head coach for a team right now, even though they've already named. And maybe it's a little different because Liberty has gone ahead and named Jamie Chadwell as the new head coach, so he knows he's not going to be the head coach at Liberty anymore. So his replacement is already there. And Chadwell maybe has already had a conversation saying he wasn't going to be retained. So he doesn't feel the need to wait on that conversation anymore. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Right. But it is a possibility that that's the situation. Let's see. James, excuse me, I'm clicking on all the wrong stuff. James Sawyer said I would have kept Ike over C-Rob. I don't know if it was a one or the other situation. They play on different sides or coach different sides of the ball, defense and offense. And I don't know if it was like a percentage of the old staff and they decided. I don't know what to think of that whole situation, right? So we still have a waiting game to do. Tori Dickerson, my guy Tori Dickerson says, do you think they'd backtrack on Ike Hilliard? Ooh, we talked about this a little bit last night. I at this point, I'm like, hey, if your guy isn't identified and Ike Hilliard's still out there looking for a job, why not go back to him? But I think that's a hard conversation to have, right? Like that would be like, we like make relationship analogies all the time on this show. That'd be like you ask you had a prom date, and I'm taking it back to high school with this. You had a prom date lined up, and she was ready, and she got her dressed and all that kind of stuff, and then you had your eye on this other girl who you thought was available, and you was like, hey, so here's the thing. um I think, I think we need to go in different directions about this prom thing. I'm thinking, you really wanted to do a blue theme, and you was stuck on blue, and I really wanted to go like orange. So I'm gonna go orange, and I'm gonna let you find another place to do blue. And then a couple of weeks later, the girl who you wanted to go with that was doing the orange thing decided that, it wasn't the right situation for her. You was like, hey, so listen. I don't know how you come back and say that again, right? So, like, is Ike even willing to entertain that conversation? I don't know. I think that's a difficult thing to think. But I listen. I think he'd be a good hire. Of course, I thought he was a good hire when we had him the first time. So, um, let's see. So here's an interesting thought, and I want to see where that conversation started, because let's see, because I see Christian responding to this, and maybe this was just an epiphany that he had. He said, oh yeah, Trevon Reed is still here, so I feel a little better. Would there be a possibility of Trevon Reed being promoted to be on the field staff? It's a possibility. I don't know. Again, I just throwing stuff out here. Look, we speculating this morning. Might as well throw a speculation out. Why not bring T. Reed and make him an on the field staff person? He's a dog on the recruiting trail. He knows the position. He's played it. And we talk about guys who need to be able to coach. Special teams. Trevon Reed could be that kind of guy too. So maybe, I don't know, man. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But it has been rumored that they're bringing the guy from Liberty. So let me not just throw random stuff out there. But yeah, man. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes. That was breaking news this morning. You have been watching the Morning Drop, um, sponsored by the Rogue Shop. Please share this video if you are, before you get out of here, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, come on board to be a member of the War Report. All of those things help. Go comment on the video afterwards. Again, pinned in the chat is a link to Mike G's medical bill fund. If you want to be able to give that, please do give to that. If you can just share it on your social media or email it or text message it, tell people about it. We appreciate that, man. I appreciate y'all for dropping in here. I'm out of here, your man, Ike Jones. Until next time, we will keep dropping it on them. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back with another morning drop. I'll see y'all later. Peace.